So welcome to YOUnified, Unburdened Living, and we're focusing on creating awareness and unity to the fragmented self, which is the root cause of your inner and outer challenges. Thank you so much for tuning in and making your way here today. I'm excited to offer you a glimpse into the gentle yet effective process that I use to access freedom, peace, and fulfillment. If you don't know, my name is Enigma L'Enfant, and I will be your guide on this inner journey. As an international healer, educator, and speaker, my purpose is helping the silently suffering access their inner wisdom so they can overcome challenges and step into a more fulfilling experience. Today, we have with us Kelly. Now, Kelly, you've had some healing, and you've taken the one of the programs that I offer. Before we dive into today's focus, how would you feel comfortable sharing a couple of highlights of what's been possible for you so far, some of the things that really jump out at you, in what benefits you can enjoy from healing this inner conflict and how that might represent in your external world?
In regards to theta healing?
Yeah, or just your own inner work.
Right. So one of I've been on my spiritual journey for more than 10 years. And for me, one of the most interesting things just recently happened where with all of the stuff that's been going on in the world and everything, I'm always like listening to blogs, watching, those sort of things, podcasts and all those sort of things. And about 2 weeks ago, when I was in the height of the frenzy and the panic and how am I going to work from home and make all of this stuff work and still see my clients and still make money and all that sort of stuff and be concerned about the health aspect, I was feeling completely overwhelmed and just absolutely frantic. And I'm a person who meditates every day and who does my theta healing on myself and all of that sort of stuff, Reiki, energy work, and all that sort of stuff. So I literally had to stop and think for a moment and say, what's going on here? I know better. I know that there's something different. And just probably within an hour, I watched a podcast, and I don't remember who the author was, otherwise I'd give them credit. But one of the things that they said was, having a spiritual practice is easy when it's not, when life is easy. And spiritual practices really come into play during these challenging times. Mm-hmm. And I stopped and I was like, yeah, that's true. So I really started focusing on a lot of the techniques that you had taught me in the Theta Healing course back in February. And I'm so glad that I did it then.
Perfect timing, eh?
Perfect timing. And, my Reiki and my spiritual alignment connection and all that sort of stuff. So I definitely feel a lot more calmer, and through my meditations, I've been able to get some clarity on how to keep my mental health. And one of the things that I'm doing now is, almost on an hourly basis, I do a check-in with myself to say, what do you need? What do you need? And things, and kind of go from there. Now, that doesn't stop the franticness of, when I'm on the phone calls with the clients and things like that. But yeah, so that's kind of my experience.
Well, would you say that how you respond to situations has improved or has changed quite a bit since you've been recognizing your inner wounds, your own triggers, and your own limited perspectives?
Absolutely, because I think one of the things that happens when you start to recognize what those things are, whether it's a trigger, a wound, or some past event, is it's almost like it triggers you to take responsibility for it. And once you take responsibility for it, then you can actually own it and go forward from it.
You're absolutely right. I'll echo on that one. So I love this topic. It's one of my favorite things to work on. In fact, I have a whole module dedicated to it in my anxiety-free me program, because people who struggle with anxiety, this is often one of the pivotal pieces that we look at, and that's the feeling of lacking control, or the frustration of not having control, or the disempowerment that comes from feeling out of control. So today we are going to focus on that. And thank you so much, Kelly, for stepping up and allowing not just for you to receive the healing, but for everyone that is joining us, whether you're listening to the replay or you're here live. I'm going to be offering you some really juicy downloads. And how the downloads work is you simply need to say yes, which is your conscious affirmation, if you will, that you are open and receptive to receiving let's call it the universe's original software. Everyone has a different belief structure. In the unified field that connects us all, there are some universal truths. The truth of what unconditional love is, the truth of what unconditional compassion is, the truth of what unconditional acceptance is. And sometimes in our human experience, we have challenges or environments that lead us to believe or have a different perspective as to what we think those things are. And then we mold ourselves or create these let's call them obligations on ourselves to fulfill certain roles and to be a certain way. So if any of these sound good for you, they're up for grabs. So everyone's going to get a group healing today. So welcome everyone. So let's dive into control. So now with your permission, Kelly, I'm going to go ahead and give you a scan and see what path are we going to follow in order for us to help you overcome this frustration and this irritation that comes with this feeling of lack of control, so that we can step you more firmly into the control that you do have in your life.
Okay, yes.
Okay. So we're gonna play a little game. It's called What's the Worst Thing That Would Happen? So what we're gonna do is I have a, all right, so let's dive right in. So I'm gonna get you to close your eyes. And for everyone listening, I'm gonna invite you to do the same, because what we're gonna do is support you in a group healing as well. So now what I'm hearing for you is, Kelly, what's the worst thing that would happen if you didn't have control? Where does your mind bring you?
That my business would fail.
Okay. All right, so your business fails, and then what's the worst that would happen?
That I would lose everything. I'd have no money.
Okay, well, I heard poverty, and I feel that's probably a group word as well. So if that's okay with you, so you're in poverty, and so you're impoverished, and then what happens?
That I would feel like a failure. Okay. That one of the things that comes to me is that I won't be able to help anybody, because that's something that I feel like I help, you know, not just financially, but I help people. I'm always there for people, I guess. So if it almost feels that if the lack of control is around my business failing, and if my business fails, then I have to go out and find something else to do, because I would never put myself in a position that, you know, I would lose my house and my family wouldn't have some place to live. But then I'm going to have to spend so much time on myself, which doesn't feel good for me, that, you know, that I wouldn't be there for anybody else either.
The words that come to me when you're saying that, and see how it feels for you, is there'll be a loss of purpose.
Yes,
you have lost
very much so, because I wouldn't have time to focus on. I enjoy so much doing the things like my meditations and readings and those sort of things. But if I didn't have the lifestyle that I have today, I'd have to go get 2 jobs just to make sure that everything is taken care of. So
to maintain your status quo, so to speak,
right.
or your current
lifestyle. Right.
Now, just for fun, and I know you've trained well and deeply into muscle testing, which muscle testing process works best for you?
For me, I find it's that
one. Great.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are familiar with it, and if you're not, I have a YouTube tutorial on my YouTube channel that's called Mastering Ascension, and it's about a 15-minute training on how to do various types of muscle testing. Now, the reason why I really like to use muscle testing is because consciously, we know what we need to do, and we know what's true and we know what's not true. And then subconsciously, we have these underlying fears, limiting beliefs, old traumas and pains that create this conflict within us. And that's, for me, what's really birthed the method of the YOUnified project, if you will, or the YOUnified method, is when I look at that, whatever the challenge is, doesn't even matter. It's always a conflict between one belief structure and another, one emotional representation and another, one physical representation or another. So there's always a conflict between one version of the self and another version of the self. So let's go ahead and do some muscle testing. And here's what I would like for you to test. A loss of control equals a loss of purpose. So I'll get you to close your eyes, take a deep breath. A loss of control equals a loss of purpose. And then out loud. Yeah, I'm testing for you as well, yeah. Now, for those of you, there's a few different ways. You can do the finger rub, you can do the circle thing, you can stand up, face north, and do the body sway. There's an arm one if you have a partner with you today. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do, and if you want more about that, I have a training that's available for free on my YouTube channel. So now, does that resonate with you?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
it does.
great. So now what we're going to do, with your permission, is what I'm hearing is we're going to start with some baseline information, which I feel is a really good approach for everyone that's listening. Sometimes what happens is we grow up having a certain perception of what control is and what we think people who have control are, so that can get really skewed as to what actual control is and what perceived control is. So let's get everybody on the same page by really allowing that highest definition. And what word do you personally use in regards to source, creator, God, the universe? What's your go-to word in your belief structure that you relate to the YOUnified field, or source energy, or that God energy?
So myself, I use source and creator,
Okay.
like changeably.
Now, what we're going to do, what I want everyone that's listening is, everyone has their own personal belief structure, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the word creator because it's a little bit generic, if you will. And then that way, if creator doesn't resonate with you, I'm using that word to represent your personal higher power. And so you can just interchange that word with what word represents that for you. Some people it's love, some people it's source, some people it's energy, right? So the word itself is not super important, but your acknowledgement of it means that for you. So now, with your permission, would it be okay for us to offer you Creator's highest truth perspective, definition, and understanding of what personal control is, what it feels like to have personal control, and how to live your life with that control, and how to apply it in a real tangible way? Would that be okay?
Yes.
And would it be okay for us to show you the truth around all of your past experiences where you were led to believe otherwise, and to show you what was really going on in those past experiences? Would that be okay?
Yes.
Okay. So for those of you listening, if you are open and receptive to having a new way of interpreting past experiences and healing old wounds, just say yes to receive this healing now. Take a breath, allow the energetic flow through you. Okay, now what we're going to do, with your permission, is let's allow you to have proper discernment between where your control actually lives. Would that be okay? right? So
Yes.
the short answer is you only have control over your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. That's it, guys. Now, like we like to try to control out here, and that's extremely disempowering, and that leaves us feeling frustrated, irritated, overwhelmed, afraid, right? Because we're trying to control something that we don't actually have control over, so we're fighting a losing battle. But what happens if we take that energy and we allow it to be allocated where we actually have control? That's where the feeling and sense of empowerment can really step in. So we're going to go ahead and do that for you guys today, okay? So let's show you what it is, what it feels like, and let's go ahead and give you proper discernment between what you have control over, and let's show you how to discern in regards to what you might have a limiting belief that you have control over that you actually don't. Would that be okay?
Yes.
So let's go ahead and really define that line for each and every one of you. And some of you might be a little different, right? Some of you might have people that you're a caregiver for, so that responsibility and that control line's a little different than others. So what your personal capacity for control is, and how to allocate it to the aspects and areas of your life that you actually have control over. Good. So now I'm seeing a little visual here. So I'm going to walk you through a visual. I want you to ask your emotional body, your mental body, your physical body, and everyone's going to experience this in a different way, but I'm seeing a number. So you might feel a number, you might get a percentage, you might get a part of, you might feel there's a fragment within you. How much of your current energetic allocation to control is actually allocated to what you can control? I want you to ask your body to show you in a way that makes sense to you what that actually looks like.
I heard 75.
Yeah, I keep hearing like a global 80% is like outside. And like 20% is like in here. So you bet 75. For those of you that are listening in live or the replay, I'm super curious. Feel free to throw your number in or your impression in the comments. Wow, what could you do with 80% more energy or 75% more energy? Like what could you do? How much more empowered would you be if you took that 75% of that control energy and you actually gave it back to yourself in areas where you could actually be in power?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's do that. How's that sound for everybody? Okay.
Yeah.
So with your permission, we've given you discernment. Let's go ahead and I'll really capture that back. So I'm seeing there's some ethereal chords, there's some group consciousness thing, there group consciousness energy, or you're feeding into the pact, which is not a negative thing, but it's a one-way thing. So it's you're emptying your vessel in the way that I'm seeing it. So now what we're going to do with your permission is we're going to go ahead and recapture that energy. And then we're going to reallocate it and reassign it to the areas in your life where you have actual control. Would that be okay?
Yes.
Good. So everyone, if that sounds good to you, go ahead and say yes out loud to receive that healing download. I'm going to witness the change for everyone. Let's go ahead and release any and all trauma, shock, cellular trauma, frozen energy, or any old past traumas that you have around control. Would that be okay? There's an opportunity here for some deeper healing, so I'm going to go ahead and offer that. So if you want to clean that up out of your cupboards, it's a great time. The invitation is there. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and initiate the one that we did earlier. Let's show you the highest truth around all of your past experiences where your previous definition of control and your previous allocation to that control might have influenced your past experiences, emotions, and choices. And let's show you a different way of reinterpreting those past experiences without reliving them, so that you can upgrade and reorganize your data bank within your neurology with this new information. Would that be okay? So we're going to kind of clean out some of the old wounds and stories that you might have been experiencing because of that misinterpretation. So let's go ahead and witness that healing for all who desire it. Okay, and I love that one of the first things you brought up, Kelly, it was responsibility. And now it's like just kind of slapping me in the face. So we're going to go there. So now just for fun, and I'd love for all of you that are listening to just test this for yourself. So you can use this one, you can use this should be soft when it's a yes, and it should be sticky when it's a no, just to give you a quick interpretation of muscle testing. So now let's see here. My perception of my responsibilities are the same as creators.
My perceptions of my responsibility are the same as creators.
Okay. I have creators' truth around that.
I have creators' truth around that.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah. And you could feel it too, even though you were getting a yes, getting a yes, right?
Yeah.
Were you? I could feel the resistance in your muscle testing a little bit.
Yeah. No, yeah. I lately, especially lately, I find that I hear it.
You see the two voices.
Yeah. Like I hear the yes or the no before this even works.
Mm-hmm.
So, because sometimes I find, especially for me, that I find that all these things, I can do them on somebody else, easy peasy. So, but for myself, there's a belief system that's more difficult for me. So I actually hear it.
I love that. Yeah. Well, and I call that, like, it's not PC, but I call that our own internal BS meter. It's like, we know when we're full of shit. Like, say something out loud and every cell in your body is like, you're so full of it right now.
Exactly.
Like, and I've seen some people that are a little bit physically and emotionally disconnected from the cells, where they're like, my name's Nick, my name's Tony, and they're like, no difference. And I'm like, there's no difference. Like, you don't feel weird saying my name is Tony. So then we end up working on something more deep, right? Which
so exactly. So when I do this, I don't trust this as much as I trust this.
Yeah, I get like an instant,
exactly.
Yeah, or yes. And when we do muscle testing, the important part to remember here is it's either a heck yes or a heck no. Anything in between is wonky. It means you have like inconsistent programming, inconsistent belief structures, inconsistent emotional association with whatever the topic is. So you want a heck yes or you want a heck no, and anything in between is a kind of maybe, doesn't count. Is not good for what we're doing here on the subconscious level. Right. When you think about it, when your subconscious patterns is like 95% of your experience, if you just have like a 5% that's off, well, it can be a really big impact in your life, and it creates inconsistent results. So like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it works. And that's like super frustrating, because you're like, well, I'm doing all of the affirmations. Why isn't it working? So that's why maybe you'll get maybe as a success rate. So how does everybody feel? Because what I'm looking at, just for fun, I want you to ask your body to show you, and you can even do muscle testing, 10% of the energy that I have, or because we want to do responsibility. So 100% of what I feel I'm responsible for is true through creator's perspective, or whatever word you like, right? So do you have the same perception or perspective of what you are or required to be responsible for than whatever your higher power is? Have you taken on more responsibility that's reasonable and realistic for yourself? And sometimes when we do that, it really creates this feeling of overwhelm, and then it really ties into that lack of control feeling that you might be experiencing. Does that make sense for everyone?
Yes.
Okay,
it does.
So, let's work on that one. So just for fun, 100% being like you totally just doing what you're responsible for. It doesn't mean that you're not compassionate or generous or you don't help other people, but your basic responsibilities are, how much of what you're doing is currently your true responsibilities. So let's just ask yourself and see how you feel about it. Okay, now with your permission, let me allow Creator to show you the truth of how much of that is actually misallocated. Would that be okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll get you to take a deep breath, And I want to see how much of your energy or how much responsibility have you taken on that's actually something that you have no access to, and there's no way in hell you could actually take control of. What percentage of I got a number for you. So I know you're a numbers girl like me, so I got a number for you. So I got 40% is over allocated. Yeah. Is that what you got too?
40% is exactly what I had.
Oh, isn't that kind of fun? Ding, ding, ding. It's so fun. I love this. This is such fun stuff for me. So now, if I'd love if you would let us know what's your personal feeling for those who are listening. What percentage of energy are you overextending or over allocating to things that are physically outside of your responsibility? Good. Yeah, we're getting a range about 40, 45. I'm hearing a 60 in the crowd, so that might be a live or a replay person. But if that's you, I'd love for you to let me know, because I hear pretty resounding 60 as well. So now, with your permission, and if this sounds good for you, if you'd like to take, what would you do with 40% more time, right? Because responsibility equals time, energy, thoughts, right? Like when you take on a responsibility that's outside of what you can have control over, how much time, energy, thought, emotion does that suck out of you? It's actually more than 40% of your energy, because you're trying to fix something you can't fix, or you're trying to do something you can't do. So then you're fighting with it, which actually takes more energy. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
So I'm hearing about 65% is the energy that you're putting to try to do that 40%. So let's go ahead and clean all that up for everyone who's interested. Let's go ahead and first help you to redefine the highest truth of what your actual personal responsibility is. Let's allow you to define that in a clear and discerned way. Let's show you how to recognize it emotionally, so that emotionally can be like, oh, that's my responsibility, and that's outside of my responsibility. And let's go ahead and show you how to apply that in a tangible way. And I'm hearing another piece. Let's give you appropriate discernment between supporting someone and taking responsibility for something that's outside of your responsibility. And also discernment between generosity and love and responsibility, because they're different. So let's go ahead and allow you to continue to be the generous, compassionate, loving souls that you are, but without needing to take the burden of that responsibility that is outside of your control. So let's go ahead and really clean that up for all of you that are interested. Please say yes to receive this healing. And some of you might feel a little bit of movement. There's a lot of neuron pathways being reorganized here. So we're going to use the beautiful capacity of your neuroplasticity to rewire and retrain your brain so that it can identify things in a different way and action them in a different way, and also feel about them in a different way. Okay, now let's show you what it is and what it feels like to take ownership of what you can control, and let's allow you to release what you can't control, but without feeling blame, shame, guilt, or not enoughness are the four that that are screaming out to me for everyone. So let's show you how to own what you own, to be responsible for what you're responsible for, and to have that clear, defined boundary that's healthy for you, but without feeling bad about yourself. Would that be okay?
Yes.
So I'll get you to take a deep breath. Now, just for fun, Kelly, and we go back to the original thing. So now, what's the worst thing that would happen if you would lose control? How's that feel for you now? And all of you at home, when you look at what you believe you have control over, has that shifted for you? What you feel you have control over, what you're responsible for?
Yeah, the responsibility doesn't feel as great.
It feels less heavy almost.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to describe it. It's less heavy.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you look at your control and your responsibility, and you imagine where that's being allocated in your life now, how does that feel to you? Can you identify some of the places where you were allocating energy where it was really a waste because there was no access?
Yeah, I would say with in regards to my job, my business, in the sense that there's absolutely nothing that I can do about the fact that I'm not allowed to leave my house and go to other clients' houses, because that's my job. I can't do that. So,
Yeah.
and surprisingly, I was feeling a lot of guilt about that.
So it didn't surprise you when the healing came through without guilt.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, yeah, I mean, I can't control that. So why am I feeling guilty about that?
It's interesting, because when you have a misallocation of what you have control over and a misinterpretation of what you're responsible for, well, then you feel guilty about things that you shouldn't feel guilty about. And
Exactly.
You know better, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you still feel guilty. And you're like,
Yeah.
I don't understand what to do with myself. And that's essentially what happens, right? It's that conflict. It's
Yeah.
the truth of what you know, and then the feeling that doesn't match that conscious awareness, which is a telltale sign that your subconscious belief structure has a different interpretation of what your conscious is experiencing and how it's interpreting the outside world or even your inner world.
Right.
Good. So now, with your permission, let's integrate all of that. So we're just going to tie that little bow on that little present. And we're going to release you of any and all obligations, commitments, contracts, vows. We're going to release you from the status quo of your old reality and allow you to move comfortably in an empowered state into your new reality. We're going to show you who you are, what your life looks like, what your future looks like, and what all of your relationship looks like with these new changes in place. Would that be okay?
Yes.
So integration is an instrumental aspect of the healing that allows you to let go of, let's say, the old you, and allow you to move much more comfortably into your new reality, expressing yourself as the true expression of who you are without so much objection or discomfort from your outside world. So that's why integration is quite important. So I'm just going to witness that change for all of you. And one of the quantum physics instruments that we use within these types of healings is the observer effect. So I've offered you a healing, and now I'm creating space and witnessing that change so that it can take shape in your life. Okay, and there's quite a bit of movement happening for all of you. So I'm just going to keep holding that space. And let's show you what it is and what it feels like to redefine yourself and allow yourself to be re-explored is the word that I'm hearing. Because it's almost like you're rediscovering a part of yourself that you didn't know that was there, because the roles that you were trying to play were defining you instead of who you actually were. So what we're doing is, I'm seeing is that we're releasing these old projections of who we thought we were and allowing ourselves to step into the truth of who we are, instead of, well, I need to, or I should, or a good person does, right? All of those labels and social expectations that we self-impose on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and clear that all up. There's some fears of the future coming up for some in the group. So let's show you what your future is going to look like if you give yourself permission to own your control and to own your responsibilities and to step into that fully, and giving yourself permission to let go and release the things that are outside of that arena. Would that be okay? Let's show you what your future looks like. Good. Now let's go back to the beginning. How do you feel about your sense of, or that feeling of lack of control that that basically triggered this whole conversation?
Definitely a lot lighter.
Good.
A lot lighter.
And hearing this I'm going to ask you this question. That just like, what's your to-do list look like now? Like when you imagine your to-do list, like just in your mind state.
So it definitely feels less heavy than what it did before this call. Just before this call, I was on Zoom meeting for my office, and for an hour and a half, and the list of things that they were telling us to make sure that we had done, and things like that, and it was getting overwhelming. And then knowing that, like, I have 300 clients that I need to make sure that, you know, I reach out to again this week, because it was something that's really important to me, but all of those things were feeling, before this call, it was feeling like, I don't know how I'm going to accomplish it. I don't know, but I need to. It's just this sickness that was going. And now I just feel like, oh, I'll get done what needs to get done.
Well, it almost felt like while you were sharing that, it wasn't just like reaching out to, but it was like fixing all of their problems, right? Or fears or thoughts.
Where that comes from.
And so you can offer information, and having essentially lived in your seat in a way for 15 years, you can acknowledge and you can give them information, and you can give them historical facts about the market. But at the end of the day, if they're going to be terrified, they're going to be terrified. It doesn't matter how much Kelly, you know, cheerleading you do, the responsibility of how they feel is still theirs, right? So you can be a guide, you can be a support, you can offer them insight, but what they do with it and the value they gain from it, that's their responsibility. And I think when you were thinking about those 300 phone calls or emails, it was like, now I have to take responsibility for everybody and how they feel, because I got it. It's my job to make them feel good.
Yeah.
About the market crashing. That's always a fun one. Hey, when I went to school, the market was only supposed to crash every 7 years, and I swear to God, that has not been my experience. I think we got to rewrite that business model.
I know, me too.
Good. Well, I'm so grateful to you, Kelly, for, you know, being a guinea pig, and for allowing us the space to share with people that might not have, I don't want to say the courage, but it's sometimes we are so afraid to go in here and look at our fears, because we think we're going to find something really overwhelming or uncomfortable, or that's going to take over us. And something that I've been really striving to help people to know is to give them this little peek behind the curtain and going, you know what, letting go of really big stuff doesn't need to be a lot of work. It just needs for you to have the courage and to make the decision that you're done with it. And as far as you've gotten to that line, or as long as you're like, you know what, I'm ready. Not just you think you're ready, but you're like, okay, I'm ready for change. Then the whole process is very simple, because you're just restructuring how you perceive, how you interpret, and how you feel about things, right? So that's just a relearning and a rewiring. In your neurological complex, also tied into your central nervous system, also tied into your hormonal system, also tied into your biochemical communication that happens between your mind and all of your cells in your body, your emotional body, your energetic body, and the vibe that you put out there. So it's all really tied into this, what I call like our ground control or mission control within our subconscious mind, which is not necessarily in the brain, but it's everywhere, right? It's all of us, and it's that connection to that source and that soul level energy that we all have access to. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
We're going to be doing another group consciousness and healthy boundary in tomorrow at 11. So if you're here, then you probably got the email for that this morning. So feel free to register for that one. And now, so you know, from CEOs to social workers, Kuwait to Calgary, inner conflict continues to show itself as the root cause of our suffering. So my goal is to change the perception that inner work or healing work requires a lot of heavy lifting. What's really needed is for you to be ready, for you to be willing, and for you to have a little bit of courage to step into that light. So if you're ready for the empowerment that comes with connecting deeply to your authentic self, I invite you to explore working with me on a deeper level, because it's always my pleasure to personally guide you back to yourself, because that's where you're going. So feel free to reach out to me for a complimentary discovery call, and we'll map out the best approach for your needs. Now be sure to tap in and tune into our next episode. And if you found this helpful, feel free to share this and information with your friends, with your loved ones, with your colleagues who might need a little bit of help with their control issues.
I think that covers everybody.
Yeah, they're like, oh no. They only hear that part at the end, so you're good. Thanks so much for joining us. Please do feel free to leave some comments, and if you're tuning into my YouTube channel, feel free to subscribe, like, comment, do all that kind of cool stuff. Thanks again, Kelly. It's a pleasure to be in your presence today and to be part of your journey.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.